Hey Stampers, Kim from stampingimperfection.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. I just have a very quick tip I want to share. Someone asked how to re-ink the Altenew pads, and I have to re-ink my permanent black ink pad, so I thought it would be a good time to show you how to do that. And it's actually really easy to do. And this one actually doesn't look really dry. Sometimes you can tell just by looking at the edge of the pad. Like I've recently re-inked all these, so they're nice and full. So my black one gets used a lot, so I like to keep it inked. So I want to show you how to do that. Here's one though that you can see if you look at the edge of the pad, you can actually start to see that it looks like it's drying out a little bit. It's not as juicy as some of the other pads, which I've recently re-inked. Like that one, when I show you the side of that, you can see that it's full of ink. And sometimes, you know, I can tell by looking at it that it's starting to get dry. You can see that the top sort of gets a mottled look, and the drier it gets, the more distinct that will be. So you just want to keep an eye on that. The other thing too, like this one doesn't really look dry, and it's a fairly new pad also, but I've just used it a ridiculous amount lately. I just like my black ink pads to be pretty inked up. So all I do is I take the re-inker and I just go over the top. I just squeeze it over the top, and I just kind of run it all the way across like this. And you can see that ink soaking in, so that always tells me that it definitely needed that ink. Okay, and I'm not going to put too much on because I don't want to ink it up so much that the ink sits on top, because then it's very hard to get a nice crisp image. And you can take something like an old credit card or an old gift card that you're not using. A plastic spoon works. This is just a palette knife, which I'll just then wipe off just like that. And I just, you know, whatever ink didn't immediately soak in, I just swipe across, and then it's usually nice and full. So that's how I do it. That's as simple. It's as simple as that. The other thing too is when I first started stamping, gosh, I can't even tell you how long ago it was. It was at least, my kids were really little. My daughter's 28, so it was a good 28 years ago at least. We were taught that you had to store your ink pads upside down so that all the ink went to the top of the ink pad where you stamp on it. But that actually isn't true. You don't have to store your ink pads upside down. And many people have said that. Tim Holtz has said that about his ink pads. Catherine Pooler has said that about her ink pads. I've never heard anybody from Altenew say anything about it because I haven't been anywhere where they've been asked, but no, you don't need to store your ink pads upside down. But it's that simple to re-ink them. And re-inkers can be used for lots of techniques. I've got some videos on my YouTube channel, and I'll create another one because there are some fun techniques you can do with these re-inkers. So they can be used for more than just, you know, inking up your ink pads. Now these Altenew ink pads are felt ink pads, so I've only had to re-ink my Altenew inks one time, and I have owned them for years, since Altenew actually came out with ink pads. I've owned the original ones, and I just re-inked them in May, in fact. Excuse me. Catherine Pooler ink pads are foam ink pads. So the Altenew ones are felt ink pads. Those are like the old-fashioned ink pads you bought when you were a kid at the 5 and dime store with the date stamp thing. Catherine Pooler's ink pads are foam, and you can also see on the side when these are starting to get, like the side of that is starting to look like a slightly lighter color, and you can definitely see when they are getting dry. I just re-inked all of these also, but the foam ones need to be inked more often than the the felt ones. However, that being said, I have re-inked my Catherine Pooler ones for the first time ever. Also, when I re-inked my Altenew ones, I re-inked my Catherine Pooler ones. And that was the first time I'd had to do those. And I've had her ink pads since she came out with them. So, but if you purchase foam pads, you generally, when you purchase the foam pad, you should definitely go ahead and purchase the re-inker with that. With the felt pads, you can probably wait a while because they tend not to lose their ink as much. These are so juicy. You get a lot of ink every time you stamp something. So, you know, that's another thing. And depending on what techniques you do, if you do I do a lot of direct to paper because sometimes I want a piece of cardstock the same color as my ink pad, so I'll drag my ink pad across a piece of cardstock to get that color cardstock. That is going to suck up a lot of ink. So just FYI, just keep that in mind. That's that. Thank you so much for watching. Stop on my blog at stampingimperfection.com. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Click that bell to make sure you get notifications every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching.